9 o'clock on your Friday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. It's Outerhead and Jack Beltry along with you here on the game, navigating you through a very, very cold morning here. Jack, I know you're from the Northeast, so this may be like nothing for you, but how are you dealing with the cold so far?
Man, I deal with the cold just with like anyone else, man. It's freezing outside. I know it's gonna be cold today, so the snow that we're supposed to get, we'll see if that ends up happening. But like, yeah, I get cold just like everyone else. Just because I'm from the north doesn't mean I handle it any better. But it's gonna be a chilly one today.
Shout out to Under Armour, and this is not sponsored, but they make really good cold gear products. I've got the fleece on, and I also have the I don't even know what you call them. They're really like thin, long sleeve pullovers. It's like a quarter zip that I have on underneath this. So I'm very warm right now, and hopefully will be throughout the entire day.
Yeah, shout out Under Armour. Just don't give South Carolina fans too much thought because I know most of them probably want to go over to Nike pretty soon here.
Listen, anytime I ever bring up Under Armour, the amount of people that weigh in and say, I can't wait for them to be done with this contract is pretty high.
For sure.
We're not here to talk about the apparel of South Carolina sports, though. We're here to talk about what happened on the football field last night down in Miami. A thrilling Capital One Orange Bowl with Notre Dame taking down Penn State. We'll dive into all that in just a second. But first, it is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm.
Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. Jack, going into last night's game, we previewed it yesterday, talked about all the angles and things to watch for and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, I didn't have a rooting interest. I didn't care which team won. I picked Notre Dame, but if Penn State would have won, okay, makes no difference to me. I just wanted a good, competitive, fun football game, and by God, we got treated to one.
That was a heck of a game last night. That was a lot of fun to watch. And like you said, man, I could care less who wins that game. Just give us good college football because the last thing you want is a bad game in the semifinal. But what an absolute treat last night. That fourth quarter, 17-14 was the score in that fourth quarter there. Notre Dame scoring 17 fourth quarter points. I mean, it was an absolute bloodbath in that final 15 minutes and just a lot of twists and turns. And obviously the last few minutes of the game were the absolute cherry on top to a great, great night of college football.
And it's really interesting because going into the matchup yesterday, one of the things that we previewed was both teams' ability to run the ball and both teams' ability to stop the run as well. So we kind of figured it was going to be one of those kind of slow-paced, grinded-out type of games. And that's exactly what the first half was, with mainly Penn State just running the ball at a really high clip and being able to keep Notre Dame contained. They got out to the 10-0 lead. Notre Dame was able to make it 10-3 before halftime, but kind of fell in line with what we thought it was going to be. And then, like you said, the offensive explosion happens in the fourth quarter. And again, that's what got fun. It's almost like it kind of built up to that. Like, okay, you've got this slow-paced, low-scoring first half, and then you just have this phenomenal back-and-forth, chaotic ending to the game that, cultivated with, or almost came down to, the Drew Allard interception that set up Notre Dame with the short field for Mitch Jeter to kick the game winner.
Just so ironic that Mitch Jeter, I was with all of South Carolina's kicking issues from this season. It's just crazy that their former kicker goes on to lead a new team to the national championship game. It's crazy. It's the most South Carolina thing I think that happened, honestly.
Well, technically speaking, Alex Ferreira actually has better stats this year than Mitch Jeter does.
Oh yeah, because Mitch Jeter was not good during the regular season.
No, he wasn't, and he was injured, and that's the reason why that was the case. But technically speaking, and if you didn't hear it on the early game, Preston decided to die on the hill that Alex Herrera was a better option for Carolina this year. Because if you look at the numbers do tell you he technically did a better job than Mitch Jeter did this year.
Yeah, and I've seen people say like, "Oh, Mitch wouldn't have gotten hurt if he stayed at South Carolina," but like, how do we even forecast that?
So, and again, it's impossible to know about that. What I think is true here is that Mitch's upside is a lot higher than Alex Herrera's, where again, when you put him in a situation like that, and I know he missed the kick against NIU that would have potentially won them the game back in week number 2, but if you're asking me, do I trust Mitch Jeter or Alex Herrera to make the kick that Mitch Jeter did last night? I'm trusting Jeter 1,000% over Herrera because again, he was pretty inconsistent himself.
I'm trusting Jeter too, and even before this year, Jeter had always been a solid kicker for in his career when he was at South Carolina. So it looked like it might tail a little bit too far inside, but it stayed in, and that's a huge moment right there. His dad recording the moment from the stands. I mean, that gives you chills right there. That's a really cool moment right there, and good to see Notre Dame get the last laugh because, man, I mean, the refs I felt like they kind of got hosed a little bit on some of those calls.
I will say what they got called for, specifically when it came to the 2 interceptions that got overturned that ended up leading to 10 points for Penn State. And you and I were texting about this last night. I thought because Notre Dame's defense prides itself on takeaways. That is what they've done better than a lot of teams in the country this year. You saw them take advantage of that last week against Georgia as well. When you left 2 turnovers on the field that Penn State turned into 10 points, I thought that was going to be the difference in the game. And lo and behold, turns out an interception at the end of the game ends up putting Notre Dame in position to win it. I will say, though, the defensive holding on the first one, that's legit. And I thought by the letter of the rule, the second one, because essentially the DB was face guarding and didn't turn around and play the ball, that's also a penalty. That's one of those things as though when you throw the ball short and Tyler Warren, the tight end, was kind of trying to come back to it, you put the DB in kind of a no-win situation. So I can understand the gripe on that one, but again, it is a penalty by the letter of the law.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you watch it back, it's like, yeah, like you said, it probably is actually a penalty. But it's 10 points taken off the board that, in theory, Notre Dame shouldn't have had to have this game come down to a field goal. But look, I mean, I guess ball doesn't lie in technical terms here. And I mean, look, Notre Dame got that interception right after they failed to get into good field goal range to set up what could have been the initial game-winning field goal opportunity. But really good job by this Notre Dame defense to pick off Drew Aller for what was the first time in the game in the fourth quarter there. I mean, just an absolute wild showing in this game. Just a really good back-and-forth type of game, like we said.
And it's crazy. And then they were talking about this on the broadcast last night with Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy that historically, Drew Aller doesn't make dangerous throws. Like he's very good. I think he only had 9 career interceptions up to that point. He's very smart about where he puts the football. And for what ended up being the last, well, no, not the last, because they didn't get the ball for the last 8 seconds, but the last significant pass of his college career ends up being perhaps his worst throw.
Yeah, it was not a good throw. Like that was just, I mean, there was still, let's see what down that was. Because it was, I mean, they still had a lot
early. They still had a lot of, because here's the thing: when you get the ball, it's tied 24-0. You had forced Notre Dame to punt. You got the ball back with about 40 seconds. You had timeouts. The debate is always going to be: do you try and go down and get a field goal yourself or score a touchdown, or do you just play for overtime? And they ran the ball on the first play, I think, to Singleton.
Yeah, they ran
out of it. And typically, when you get a chunk play on the rush in that situation, you say, okay, now we're going to try and push it down the field. And I want to say either the play after that or the next play, it was when he threw the interception. So they felt it out and decided, okay, we got some yards here. Let's push this and see if we can get into field goal range. And again, just a terrible throw.
Yeah, not a good throw. And you had like over 30 seconds left to go. So all you need in that situation was a field goal. And I'm not sure how long Penn State's kicker can kick from, but I mean, you have enough time to make things happen there, especially with 2 timeouts. So not a good throw. I mean, it wasn't a really good day at all for Drew Aller. I think, the run game for Penn State has been phenomenal all year with 2,000-yard rushers. And I think it's what we saw from a guy like Singleton last night and even Allen. But look, Notre Dame's defense, like you said, man, they pride themselves on takeaways, and it took a little while to get them, officially on the stat sheet. But they really did a good job last night of swarming any ball that hung up in the air and picking it off and honestly bringing pressure on a guy like Aller.
Yeah, and shout out to Marcus Freeman, man. And I tweeted this out after the game last night. I think there's a lot of people in Baton Rouge looking a little bit sideways at Brian Kelly
Yeah.
because prior to last week, Notre Dame in BCS/New Year's Six games, national championships in this era had been 0-8. And of course, Brian Kelly's crew got bludgeoned by Alabama in that championship game over a decade ago now. And in 1 week, Marcus Freeman has won 2 of those games against 2 very high level programs in Georgia and Penn State. And now is taking Notre Dame to a national championship game where, for the first time in a long time, people are going to think they actually have a legitimate chance to win.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman is probably one of the best young coaches in this sport. I mean, he's absolutely phenomenal this year. And this is only his 3rd year at Notre Dame as the head coach. That's crazy to think about. And he's having this much success that Brian Kelly could never have. And Brian Kelly's a good coach. Like he got Notre Dame to the national championship that 1 year. And
But we all knew that team wasn't
we
on the same
knew Alabama was going to smack them around, coincidentally, at the Orange Bowl. But look, and he got them to these New Year's Six games consistently. It's just like you said, man, they can never get the consistent wins in those games. So Marcus Freeman's doing a good job. Today's his birthday, I think, by the way, too.
It is his birthday. He's 39 today.
So, hey, that's a great birthday present right there. Probably getting 2 big bowl wins.
And that's funny, the little individual storylines baked in this game being in Miami, where, again, Notre Dame did get bludgeoned in that national championship game back in January of 2013. Al Golden, the defensive coordinator, who, again, defense ends up being the big key there at the end of the game, was the former Miami coach that played in that stadium, back when he used to wear the tie on the sidelines, which I always thought was really funny. Got fired and had to kind of work his way back to be, this point, as one of the best defensive coordinators in college football now.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, honestly. And look, Notre Dame is having a great year. It's crazy that their only loss this season is to Northern Illinois. Like Northern Illinois, if Notre Dame wins the national championship here, Northern Illinois is probably gonna have a trophy or a flag hanging up at their stadium or somewhere on campus. It's crazy to think this team that, look, I don't know if they're going to win the national championship. They are definitely going to be a good matchup for Ohio State or Texas, whoever they do get to play. But, I mean, it's crazy to think this Notre Dame team lost to a MAC school all the way back in September.
You actually just piqued my interest a little bit there because, and I'll have to do some digging on this to find out the answer. I don't know if you've ever seen a national championship team in the modern era of what we know
I don't
as
know
FBS
either.
football ever lose to a non-power team and still win a national championship.
Like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
I mean, it hasn't happened in our lifetime. I know that much.
Teams have had bad losses, I'm sure. I
There's
just
a
can't.
difference between losing to somebody in your conference and losing to what is deemed to be a step lower in football.
Yeah, I can't think of it. But, I think we're going to get more of that moving forward because you have the 12-team playoff, and it creates more opportunity for teams to get in like this. And also, speaking of this, Notre Dame is making $20 million from making it to the national championship, while the winner of like Ohio State, for instance, would have to split it up with the rest of the conference. It's crazy.
As if Notre Dame is not raking in enough money from their TV deal and their quasi relationship with the ACC, they get most of the benefit from being an independent of the money for making the national championship game as well. They're just rolling in dough out there.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I'm sure other teams are going to look at this like, yeah, we should probably do something like this eventually too, and join or not be in a conference.
There's only one Notre Dame. I don't know if it'll work for anybody else. We'll preview the Cotton Bowl coming up a little bit later on in the show. Coming up next, though, we'll dive into men's basketball. Coach Parrish speaking last night on Carolina Calls, previewing another daunting task taking on number 2 Auburn coming up tomorrow at Colonial Life Arena. We'll hit that coming up next. This is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Friday here on the game.
find when you know where to go. And that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/radio right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
SC Works helped me train for advanced manufacturing, and now I'm in a job I'm proud of.
I always dreamed of helping people. SC Works connected me with the right training and employers, and now I have a career in healthcare that I love.
Visit SC Works online or in person to start your new career in the new year. Take advantage of job search support, education and training, and so much more. Sponsored by SC Works, a proud partner of the American Job Center Network and Equal Opportunity Employer Search Program. Auxiliary aids and services available on request for individuals with disabilities. For comforting details and compliance with Stevens Amendment, please visit 2.5/funding.
Currently car shopping? State Credit Union now has auto loan rates as low as 4.25% APR. Plus, you'll have no car payment for up to 90 days. Visit one of State Credit Union's 19 full-service branches or their website, SCSCU.com. That's SCSCU.com and apply online for your new car loan today. That's SCSCU.com. Terms and conditions apply. Equal housing lender, federally insured by the NCUA. Strengthening the lives of children and families is a passion. Turn that passion into results as a child welfare case manager. Learn more at dss.sc.gov. This message is sponsored by the South Carolina Department of Social Services. Kick the new year off with a fresh, clean home with Zerorez Air Duct Cleaning. You'd be surprised by the amount of dust and debris that is sitting in your duct system and circulating in your home. I only trust the pros of Zerorez with my home, and right now, when you mention me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game, you will get $50 off your next air duct cleaning. Use promo code AIR50 when scheduling online at ZerorezColumbia.com.
Hey, this is Jen Jensen for CHW Cabinetry. My family is using CHW Cabinetry, and they are fantastic to work with. They make sure you're satisfied with every step of the process. Not only do their photorealistic renderings show exactly what your new space will look like, their job site guarantees everyone is on the same page, literally. Experience the CHW difference for yourself. Go to chwcabinetry.com to see more, or call them at 803-520-6837, and be sure to tell them Jen Jensen sent you. CHW Cabinetry, passion from inspiration to installation.
Got something to say?
Bring us up on the Love Chevy phone.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyra Head and Jack Belcher along with you on your Friday here on the game. Cold Friday at that. Again, winter weather moving in a little bit later on today. As of right now, no plans to change tomorrow's home game against number 2 Auburn. 1 o'clock tip. Pregame coverage starting at 12:30 here on the game in Columbia, as well as 100.3 the game out in Myrtle Beach. But of course, that is subject to change. So keep your eye on that as the winter weather moves its way through a little bit later on this afternoon. Jack, what's the confidence level, man? Where are we at heading into this game tomorrow? Because from what we've seen in the first 2 games in conference play, I don't think there's a lot of people that are very optimistic.
I think people have checked out, honestly. I'm looking at like the number of like views I'm getting on like my men's basketball stories. It's kind of like plummeting, honestly, compared to like women's basketball or whatever. But look, in all seriousness, I think I talked about this yesterday on GC Live. I think I said my concern level right now on a scale of 0 to 10 was about a 7. Because, and look, people are going to say, oh, come on, guys, it's 2 games into the SEC play. There's 16 games left to go. That is very true. At the same time, though, this is a very tough league throughout, top to bottom, and this could be a long year for Carolina if they don't pick it up a little bit. So my concern level's at a 7 right now, and going into tomorrow against Auburn, I'm very worried South Carolina is going to, get bludgeoned again.
And I think a lot of that has to do with psyche as well, because there's us on the outside that have perception of the team, and then there's the internal perception. And look, Coach Paris can say, 1-0 mentality, and we're focused on the task at hand and all this kind of stuff. But for anybody that's played on a bad team growing up, whether it be like rec league baseball or Pee Wee football or something along those lines, when you're getting beat and you're playing bad, it resonates with everyone, and you start to believe you're just a bad team, and that's something that can affect you down the stretch as well. And for this Carolina team, getting beat by 35, then getting beat by 20 by two very good and tournament caliber teams in Mississippi State and Alabama. And look, they know what they're up against Auburn. But if you got bludgeoned by 35 or 40 again, then I think that mindset starts to creep in of, man, we're just not good.
And the fans are going to be done with it by then. And, it stinks because it's like you're getting the 3 toughest games to start SEC play. Like, fortunately, you're getting these Alabama teams out of the way right out of the gate. And it'll get a little easier from here because you go on the road to face Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, 2 teams that you have a better chance of winning against. Not saying you will. But, yeah, I mean, the mindset, man, it's gotta be excruciating to go get curb stomped on the road in Starkville, lose one of your starters to it's a rough injury, the blood clot, which I hope Miles Studi gets better fast.
Losing to something that's not basketball related.
Exactly. Like losing one of your key guys, and then you go out here and you play a little bit better, but it's still not even close to enough, and you lose by 20. So, look, the thing with South Carolina is they're not a bad team, like I've heard many people say. They just are in a really tough conference right now where every team just happens to be a little bit better seemingly right now. And also, you have a lot of personal team issues going on with stuff you're doing on the court. Like you're turning the ball over a lot. You had been getting off to really sluggish starts for most of the season. You lack apparent aggression, apparently, compared to these other teams, which we hear about every game, essentially. So South Carolina's got a lot of things going on that they got to fix. Luckily, I think they are able to fix some of these little issues they got going on.
Let's hear a little bit of what Coach Paris had to say last night in Carolina Calls in terms of scouting the Auburn Tigers.
And Coach Tanner Bronson always calls them the Noah's Ark team because they have 2 of everything.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But there's no doubt that they're really confident.
Yeah.
Extra confident. Slash whatever's the next thing beyond that.
Right. They don't mind wearing the black hat.
They sure don't.
Right.
Yeah. So, but anyway, they walk the walk. They talk the talk, and they've backed it up, and they've played well. And they're again, it's another very aggressive team. It's a very aggressive team. You got to be strong with the ball. I watched the Yale game from the NCAA tournament last year again. And one thing that really helped Yale was that they were in the bonus with 13 minutes left because Yale was really strong with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the difference between a foul and a steal is just how strong you are with the ball. And that's an area that we have to grow and improve. But there's no question as to how talented Auburn is.
Talented, confident, all those things are understatements. This is legitimately the best team in college basketball right now. When you look at all the statistics, number 1 in offensive efficiency. We talked the other day about Alabama being really good from shooting 2s, but not as great at shooting 3s. Auburn right about the same at shooting 2s, 4th best in the nation, and they are pretty darn good at shooting 3s themselves, hitting 37.7%, which is 33rd best in the nation. So they are in some ways an even better version of what you faced against Alabama the other day.
This team is unbelievable. They are very good, very scary, I think. And I mean, they're so good in so many different metrics. They're number 1 in adjusted offensive efficiency. That's something just insane. I mean, they're as a team, it's 59% effective field goal percentage. I mean, this team is so good. And it all starts with Jonai Broom, who's just an absolute dog out on the court.
Who leads them in almost every category.
He leads them in, get ready for this, points, rebounds, assists, and blocks. Of the 5 major categories, he leads in 4 of them. That's insane. This dude was a problem last year for South Carolina to stop. I remember going to Auburn and just seeing how dominant that team was, and then seeing in the SEC tournament, Auburn smack South Carolina around again. Jonai Broom's at the center of it all, and I really do worry that South Carolina is not going to have an answer for him. Though with Colin Murray-Boyle struggling and Nick Pringle, out there and playing a little bit better than CMB is, you really do hope one of them can guard, Broom pretty well. But I mean, no one's really been able to at all this year.
Marv hit me on the Love Chevrolet phone line in that last break there and actually posed an interesting question. He said he wanted me to pose this while we were talking. Do you think this is a team that's built to play faster than it's supposed to? Because again, a Coach Paris offensive team is going to play really slow, grinded out type of offense and really kind of rely on what they do on defense. Do you think they could play a little bit faster if they really wanted to?
It's not impossible. I don't think we've really seen it from them though, to where we could be like, yeah, they could flip the switch. It wouldn't be impossible. It's just I don't know if that's something you want to completely switch to, given where you're at in SEC play. It's one thing to probably do it early in the year, but even then, it's like I don't know if you switch from what you worked so well for you last season.
Yeah, that is a tough transition to make in season. And tomorrow against Auburn, they are not as fast of a team as Alabama, pretty darn fast, but not as fast as Alabama. So hopefully you can get off to a better start because, again, the starts are everything in these games. And you find yourself down in a 15 to 20-point hole in the first half, you're likely not going to claw your way out of that. And, again, this is an Auburn team that's very capable of doing that to you.
Now, you have to be better. And look, I liked a lot of what we saw in the first few minutes of that Alabama game. The defense was flying around, doing a lot of good things, playing aggressive. You just got to do that for 40 minutes, man. You got to do that for 40 minutes. And like, Lamont was talking about watching back that Yale game, South Carolina gets to the line quite a bit. And I feel like they didn't do a great job of that the other day. Not fully, but I feel like if South Carolina can get in the double bonus pretty quick, going into the second half or whatever, they'll feel pretty good about where they are if they're in a close game.
We'll see what happens tomorrow. Again, tip off at 1 o'clock. Pregame coverage starting at 12:30 here on the Game in Columbia and 100.3 the Game out in Myrtle Beach. Tonight, the second game of the college football playoff semifinals, the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic out in Dallas between Ohio State and Texas. Diving that game coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler and Jack with you on your Friday here on the Game. Tyler Head here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. We've been talking about all this football, and I can't think of a better weekend to take in a ton of great football action than with our friends over at Twin Peaks. You had a semifinal game last night. You got another one tonight. You got pro football playoffs going on all weekend long through Monday night with Minnesota and Los Angeles. And guess what? All those games will be on the TVs with our friends at Twin Peaks right down the street from us here in the Vista. You can take in all the action, cheer on your favorite team, cheer against the teams that you hate while enjoying tons of delicious food, tons of amazing drinks, including those Frosty. And yes, I know it's cold outside, but even when it's cold, I still love a Frosty 29-degree draft beer that just really hits the spot, especially when watching my favorite sport of football. All that and much more with our friends at Twin Peaks down in the Vista.
Oh.
And welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's all right, and Jack Belcher along with you on your Friday here on the game. It's really neat. So Wes asked me this question yesterday. My thoughts on having a semifinal game on Thursday, and obviously going to have another one here tonight on Friday. What having these games in the middle of the week feels like. And look, I said this yesterday. I'm as pro college football on Saturday as anybody. I think the national championship should be on Saturday. I think as many games as possible could be on Saturday. But I'm not going to lie. Looking forward to the game last night and then looking forward to the game tonight makes your Thursday and Friday a little bit more fun.
Oh, absolutely. And this is I told you this yesterday, I think. This is the strategy that the national championship game should be taking moving forward. Like, it just makes more sense because you do, in some cases, play college football. Usually every week, there's usually a game on Thursday and Friday. But Monday just feels so weird for a national championship game, especially on a day where people are going to be going into work the next day. It doesn't start till like 8:45 at night, which is crazy to me. But yeah, last night, seriously, really enjoyed it. And tonight, I'm going to be glued to the TV again. Like, I think it's going to be a great game, hopefully, with Texas and Ohio State. And being a 7:30 kick on a Friday, I like it. And that's the strategy we need moving forward for this type of game.
I think this is the game that draws more attention. Yes, Notre Dame and Penn State, obviously very big brands. But in terms of what the capabilities of the roster, because here's the thing, there were no elite wide receivers in that game last night between Penn State and Notre Dame. Again, Tyler Warren at tight end is the best receiver that Penn State has. They didn't throw to a receiver until like the fourth quarter, I think it was. So you have a higher caliber of talent in this game tonight. And if it ends up being a good game, it could be an explosive back and forth contest between two of the most talented rosters in college football. But I feel like both teams going into tonight's game have a lot to prove to people based on what we thought about these teams at various points during the season. Texas obviously had a very manageable schedule in the SEC, but when they played the best teams the best team in Georgia, they lost to them twice in the regular season at home and the conference championship game. So they're still not established as truly one of the best in the SEC because they couldn't get over the Georgia hump to a lot of people. And Ohio State, again, what they've done in the past two games is so impressive. But people still are going to look back at that Michigan loss and say, is that team going to show up in this game? So I think both teams are trying to prove a lot of people wrong with tonight's game and route to playing for the national championship here next week.
You hit the nail on the head, man. Like, they do have a lot to prove. And for Texas, it's like, okay, if they can get this win tonight, it kind of silences any of the doubters, haters, whatever you want to call the people that don't believe Texas has beaten anyone this year. And they've gotten to this point by beating some good teams like Clemson and Arizona State. But it's not the cream of the crop, the top of college football teams that, Texas, most people think that they should be beating. Ohio State is going to be one of those teams. So if Texas gets that win, it's like, okay, that kind of puts to rest any of the doubts. Now, as for Ohio State, I feel like a lot of people are probably leaning Ohio State for this game. I know we at Gamecock Central and 107.5 The Game are definitely leaning. So we all picked, ironically enough, Notre Dame and Ohio State, all 14 of us. That's kind of ironic and just crazy, to be honest. But for Ohio State, they're a great team. Like, they're on fire right now. And, as the number 8 seed in this playoff, I don't think anyone really expected the Buckeyes to do a ton, especially since they were coming off that bad loss to Michigan. And everyone was questioning, Ryan Day, is he going to get fired if they lose to Tennessee or whatever the case might be? They have just dominated since then. And it'll be interesting to see if they can keep it up tonight. And it'd be kind of crazy if Ohio State was the first team to win in the 4-team college football playoff back in 2014, and the first team to win the 12-team playoff. That's something that would be really interesting.
Yeah, very, very possible. Ohio State currently the 6-point favorite, according to ESPN. And Texas, by most people, like you said, most of us picked Ohio State to win this game, being viewed as the clear underdog. Here's Steve Sarkisian yesterday at the joint press conference talking about Texas and the underdog role.
And I think a lot of times, in this format, now we're kind of in this NFL format model. It's not always about who was the best team for 12 games, it's who's playing the best football this time of the year. And I think we could all agree what Coach Day's done, their team, them coming out of that Michigan game and what they've been able to do since the playoffs have started has been tremendous. And that's a credit to Coach Day and his staff of regalvanizing that roster and getting them going. And I could probably poll everybody in this room, and you'd probably all agree they're the favorite to win the game. And that's okay, but that's football, that's sport. That's why we have to do what we do. So I don't not going to back off of what I said. The reality is the reality. Now we have to go perform. That's our responsibility as a football team to go perform, but they've earned that right because of the way they've played here the past couple of weeks.
And look, Sark brings up a really interesting point, and this is the way I've kind of tried to view these teams too now that we've had a couple games in the playoffs. What you did in the first 12 games or 13 if you played in your conference championship game doesn't hold as much weight to me as what you've done in the playoff so far. And for both these teams, they had to play home games in round number 1. Texas took care of Clemson, but they let them back in that game and made it a little bit more closer than people thought it should be, while Ohio State bludgeoned Tennessee and left no doubt. In the second round, in the quarterfinals, Texas looked like they were going to blow out Arizona State, let them back in the game, had to go into overtime, and it took a 4th and 13 conversion and an interception to seal that in a game that they only had 8 offensive yards in the third quarter. Meanwhile, Ohio State bludgeoned what was then the number 1 team in the country in Oregon and left no doubt about who the better team on the field was. So going into this game, yeah, there's no reason why we shouldn't think that Ohio State is going to go out there and run over Texas once again.
Yeah, no, totally. Like you said, I mean, it's been the like a tale of two stories here, with Ohio State just dominating anyone in its way. And that is what this offense can do with a Chip Kelly-led offense as the OC. And you have Jeremiah Smith and Will Howard playing his best football right now. That is nearly impossible to stop. Tennessee couldn't do it, and they're supposed to be one of the better defenses in college football this year. And Oregon couldn't stop it worth anything in the Rose Bowl, especially in that first half. So, yeah, it's expected to think like Ohio State's a 5-point favorite right now. But really, if everything kind of goes the way the Buckeyes hope it will, this could be a game that, okay, they win by double digits. However, I think Texas is a good matchup for this Ohio State team, just in the fact that, like you kind of said at the beginning of this intro about the Ohio State-Texas game, I think when right, Texas has enough firepower to keep up with the Buckeyes in this game. It's really going to come down for me what version of Quinn Ewers are we going to get here? Are we going to get the one that, the former Ohio State guy now here at Texas? Does he want some revenge or whatever? Does he throw the ball over the field and throw for like 4 touchdowns? Or is it going to be one of those games where you're like, do we maybe put Arch Manning in? So it's one of those things where I know Texas has enough firepower to keep up. It's not as consistent, I don't feel like, as Ohio State.
Sark has maintained that Quinn Ewers is his guy, and I understand he's the more experienced guy, and he hasn't played atrociously bad. But let's say Ohio State jumps out to a 21-0 lead or a 24-3 lead, like they've done in these past couple games, and Quinn Ewers isn't playing all that great, through a quarter or a quarter and a half. Do you pull the trigger? Do you just hope that Quinn Ewers is going to figure it out and your defense is going to clamp down, or you say, you know what? Here's our future at quarterback. Let's give him a go and see what happens.
I think back to a similar situation where we all know this, when Alabama decided to switch quarterbacks at halftime of the national championship game when things weren't going right.
Yep.
So if that hadn't happened, I would say, you're probably rocking with your guy, Quinn Ewers. But if that can happen in a national championship game where you put in a freshman at the time, Tua Tagovailoa over Jalen Hurts, yes, it's very much possible. If this game isn't going according to plan, like, you need that spark, because what do you have to lose, honestly, if you're already down by a touchdown or 2?
This is already going to be a really big Texas contingent because they're playing the game in Dallas, obviously. If Texas has 2-3 and outs on their first 3 drives, the chants for Manning are probably going to be ringing through Jerry World.
I think so. I'm very interested to see what the crowd split is tonight, because it's obviously in Texas. It's in the Big D, and Austin's. I don't know how far Austin is from there, but it's obviously in the same state.
Well, there's fans everywhere in Texas.
Yeah, that's true, and Ohio State fans seemingly do travel well. So I'll be interested. I feel like Texas probably will have the advantage in that category there, but we'll see. I think it's going to be it'll be very interesting to see if Quinn Ewers doesn't play well at the beginning, if they make a change.
We'll hit a few more thoughts on this and also give our score predictions as well as we wrap up hour number 1 of the Extra Point. Coming up next, it is your Friday, Tyler and Jack here on the game. Welcome back in. Is the Extra Point. Tyler and Jack Beltry along with you on your Friday here on the game. Women's basketball picked up a pretty easy win last night over Texas A&M over at Colonial Life Arena. Yesterday afternoon, evening / it was an early tip at 5 o'clock. They'll be back in action taking on a highly ranked Texas Longhorns team coming up on Sunday. Tip-off for that is at 1 o'clock. Pregame coverage starting at 12:30 right here on 107.5 The Game. We'll talk a little bit more of women's basketball later on in the show. We're talking all things college football playoff with the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic coming up tonight between Texas and Ohio State for the chance to play Notre Dame in the national championship in Atlanta on January the 20th. I was thinking about this yesterday and previewing this matchup because Texas prides itself on defense, right? A very good defensive team, very sound. Their secondary with Jade Barron, one of the best corners in all of college football, two very effective safeties in Taff and Makuba, but they have not faced a wide receiver anywhere close to as good as Jeremiah Smith. Like Xavier Restrepo was injured and didn't play last week against them in the Peach Bowl, which if he did, maybe Arizona State ends up winning that game. But that would have been a apt comparison, I felt like. But again, when you look at their schedule, because like Georgia doesn't have elite wide receivers, the team that's the only team that's been able to beat them so far, like they've not had to go up against anybody with the caliber of talent and skill that Jeremiah Smith brings to the table tonight.
Jeremiah Smith has been absolutely unguardable in these playoffs. I mean, to put it into perspective, just some quick numbers here. By the way, he's a freshman doing all of this. Against Oregon in that Rose Bowl, 7 catches, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns. Against Tennessee, 6 catches, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. This dude is a nightmare matchup for any team. You could put him up against anyone out there, and it's like, okay, who are you even going to have guarding him or covering him out in coverage? So Texas has really got their work cut out for them. I don't even know how you really do cover him because he seems to be unstoppable right now. Even if you do stop him, though, and hold him to nothing, which seems really hard to do, they can still beat you through the air with some other weapons they have. But also, they do have a pretty good run game with Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. So some nice options out there for Ohio State, even if Jeremiah Smith isn't the threat he can be on the outside.
And here's the thing about Ohio State is we saw, especially in the Rose Bowl last week, how fast they scored. They have had 11 touchdowns in the college football playoff so far, 6 against Tennessee and 5 against Oregon last week in the Rose Bowl. Do you want to know the average amount of plays it takes them to score a touchdown on those drives?
It's probably not a lot.
It's under 5. It's 4.7. That's how fast they score on you.
Insane. That is really tough to keep up with, especially if Ohio State is moving at the pace that they can play at. Like, that's going to be tough for Texas, and we'll see. But if Will Howard's connecting with Smith early on in this game, I feel pretty good about Ohio State and their chances in this game, but we'll see.
We talked about Quinn Ewers, and look, is he capable of having good games? Absolutely. He's got talent around him. I think it really boils down to me is what happens in the run game, right? When you look at what, Texas did against Georgia, they had a total of 60 combined yards in 2 games rushing against Georgia. They had under 55 yards against Arizona State last week in the Peach Bowl. So in the games they've looked the most vulnerable, it's been games where they've not been able to run the ball with Wisner or with Jaden Blue in the backfield. And Ohio State, very good at stuffing the run, with the exception of, again, the Michigan game where they allowed 172 yards for some reason. So if Ohio State can stuff the run against Texas, they make them one-dimensional, and they force Quinn Ewers to have to beat them.
Gonna have to. You're gonna have to be a lot better in the run game to win this game, obviously, because against Clemson, you were insanely good. Like Wisner and Blue both were dominant in that game. Against Arizona State, it wasn't as good, not even close, really. And look, you got to rely on Quinn if you want to win this game. Quinn Ewers has got to play better. It's clear as day. He seemingly throws a pick in each of his last 4 games. It's been at least 1 interception, and it hasn't been anything insane. But you really do hope he can play at his best. And the last thing you want to do is, look, Texas fans might be fine with it, but throwing Arch Manning out there into the fire in the middle of this game, I don't know how much that would work. I don't know if that'd be a good thing or not.
If your run game is struggling and you're down towards the goal line, wouldn't you want to bring him in just to change things up and give yourself an extra option to have a quarterback that could use his legs that Quinn Ewers really can't?
Oh, for sure. That makes sense to do that. But I'm talking about like middle of like a drive or something, and just something's not going well, and you decide, let's just pull the plug here.
You're talking about full on switch.
Yes, for the long switch. In the moment, you can definitely do stuff like that where it's like, okay, we're down near the goal line. Like you said, you want a more agile, mobile quarterback in there? For sure. Throw him in there. But in the middle of a game where it's, like 1 or 2 score difference, that could be tough.
We got a barn burner last night, which by the law of averages means tonight's game's probably going to get out of hand one way or the other. At the end of the night, what's the final score in the Cotton Bowl?
Oh gosh. I think Texas is going to be able to keep up a little bit. I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I don't know if my prediction will be right on this or not. I'm going to go 38-35. I think it's going to be one of those games where we just see a lot of points scored. Last night, it took a while to get to that point where Penn State and Notre Dame were scoring at a high rate. But I think this game, we're going to see a consistent battle from start to finish.
I like your 38 for, you said Ohio State, right?
Yeah, Ohio State's going to win this game.
I like your 38 on Ohio State. I don't think Texas has the dogs to keep up in a game like that. I think they'll score some points, but I think Ohio State has a pretty comfortable win. I'm going to go 38-20 for this one.
I like that. Yeah, that could definitely be the case in this game with the way Ohio State's been playing, but we'll see what Texas team shows up tonight.
We'll see what happens. We'll have plenty to react to come Monday morning, and hopefully maybe some promising men's basketball. We'll see what happens. But he is Jack Felch from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head. Hour number 1 of the books of the Extra Point here on the game. Hold on. There we go.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Good stuff, man. See you Monday.
All right, see ya.
Yep.
The Game, broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios.
Take up to $20K off new Silverados.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile. Together, let's drive.
Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
Hi, this is Lisa Hosteller Brown. If you or a loved one are over 65 and haven't completed a long-term care planning consultation, now is the time. Did you know that if you aren't able to afford the high cost of skilled care, your assets can be rapidly depleted to only $2,000 unless you plan 5 years in advance? Visit lawyerlisa.com to see how we can help.
7511 St. Andrews Road, Irmo, South Carolina. Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
The team's looking good this season.
I think so. Man, I miss playing football. Being young with unlimited energy to burn. Ever since I turned 40, I just can't find that fire I used to have.
Think you could be lower testosterone?
What do you mean?
Well, guys lose their edge when they turn 40. The body has less testosterone. That's why I take Nugenix Total T.
I've heard about Nugenix. That really works.
Since I started taking Nugenix, I'm lifting like when we played for Coach Carter. I feel more energized at work. It's even spiced up things between me and the missus.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try?
Yep, send a text. It's that easy.
Text POWER to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T. It's the #1 selling testosterone boosting brand at GNC and Walmart. Do it now and they'll also send you a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, their newest, most powerful fat burner ever, absolutely free. Text DOWER to 42424. That's POWER to 42424.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
What's up, Gamecocks? Ben Taylor, third generation owner of Kato's Power Equipment. We have an exciting new solution for those of you who have retention ponds, large hills, or overgrown land that needs clearing. Now available at Kato's Power Equipment, the all-new Gravely Ovis RC40 is a remote control, track-driven flail mower with a uniquely low center of gravity that makes easy work of hillsides and large brush. Whether you're interested in renting or purchasing, come schedule your free demo today at Kato's Power Equipment.
See website for details. Bills Happen is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Must be 18 years old. Not available in all states.
Honey, the credit card bill came and we're maxed out.
Great. Maxed out cards.
Hey, Willie, what's up?
Bills are piling up. We just need some extra cash to help us get by for a few weeks.
We should do what my brother did. He went to billshappen.com and got $3,000 the next day.
With our bad credit, I don't think so.
Billshappen.com is different. They are one of the largest personal loan networks. They can help people with all credit types get up to $5,000.
I'm sure there's a lot of paperwork.
Nope, my brother said it was easy. He did it right from his phone.
If you have a regular source of income, you can be approved for a loan for up to $5,000 in minutes, and your cash can hit your bank account the next day. Billshappen.com's lenders have millions of dollars to lend, regardless of your credit history.
Great news. I went to billshappen.com, and we will have our money as soon as tomorrow.
Wow, that is fast.
Let's dive back into men's basketball a little bit.
Billshappen.com. Billshappen.com.
Wow, 2024 flew by.
but I am sure ready for 2025. My favorite way to start the new year is to make my home feel like new with Zerust Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. Only Zerust uses their advanced patented process with ZR water for a superior, long-lasting clean. Right now, get 3 rooms clean for only $119 plus. Mention me, Bill Gunner at 1075 The Game, and you'll get a hallway clean for free. Easily schedule your cleaning online at zerustcolumbia.com.
Hey, this is Nikki Stengel, manager of the Nest Showroom. We offer a wide variety of
Hour number 2. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on your Friday on the game. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll check in with our guy, Joe Machika from the Big Spur, get his thoughts on women's basketball, but also hear his latest thoughts on Notre Dame Fighting Irish picking up that win last night in the Capital One Orange Bowl, which I'm sure he is over the moon excited about. I want to turn our attention back to men's basketball for a second here. Of course, the daunting task of taking on the number 2 team in the country, maybe the best team in the country, depending on who you ask, especially after Tennessee lost the game the way they did the other day against Florida in Auburn, coming to town tomorrow. And Jack and I ran over the numbers earlier, talked about, Janai Broom and how just phenomenal he is and how much of a problem he's going to be tomorrow. This team is good. There's no two ways about that. And I'm not in the business of peeing on your leg and telling you it's raining that, oh, Carolina's got an edge this way or that way, because it really feels like they don't. And I'm not trying to be doom and gloom here and say, well, there's no way they're going to be able to win this game. It's an uphill battle, right? It's going to be a challenge, as every game in the SEC is, but especially these first couple here to start things off, where you're potentially facing starting the season 0-3. And one thing that's been questioned with this team a lot this year, go back to the North Florida game in week number 1, go back to some of those games against Presbyterian, Radford to wrap up non-conference play, go back to the first game against Mississippi State, is the effort and the energy of this team that hasn't been where most people want it to be, especially Coach Lamont Paris. And I want to get back into it. This is a little bit of a longer cut, but I think it's important to hear his full thoughts on this. Here's Coach Paris last night on Carolina Calls talking about the disappointment in the energy level he saw out of his squad this year.
I think the biggest part of everything, so to put it, I'll put it in perspective. I like music. I try to keep things relatively lighthearted. So we started off our film session today with a throwback from George Clinton.
Parliament.
Yes. Do you know what song it might have been?
No.
Any guesses?
No.
Yeah, it was Atomic Dog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was a low-hanging fruit. I just didn't go for
that's
it.
the most basic one. It was like, if you know any, you know that.
Right.
And so at one point in the song, he talks about nothing but the dog in me. And I think as you play this game and you're going to be a competitor at this level with the physicality and the aggression that's out of there, you have to have some dog in you. Right. And whatever kind it is, I hope it's not Doberman. I hope it's not a Chihuahua. I hope it's more Doberman Pinscher, Rottweiler, Pit Bull, whatever it is. You have to have some dog in you. And I think they were more aggressive than us in those ways. And so that's something I think that you just have to continue to try to develop. You got to get in those situations. You probably have to fail sometimes. And then, you got to get better at it. And so I think that was what my frustration that was one thing that I was disappointed in, was that they were so aggressive in some ways, and we weren't quite as aggressive when it came down to loose balls, when it came down to an offensive rebound, who's going to get that thing, when it came down to all those types of situations. They were, even some of their young guys. I look at some of their young guys. It's one thing if old guys that have been around,
5-year guys, grad students.
Yes, they understand how to get those angles and use their body and get there early. But they had young guys that were being aggressive like that. And so, if we're going to accomplish the things that we want to, you can't look back and that's it's not just us. I don't know if you look at, for anyone that's interested, if you go look at Mick Cronin's post game after their Michigan loss, right? He alludes to some of that. He calls it toughness. I say competitive, physical aggression. It's not as prevalent. And if you have it now, you stick out like a sore thumb. So I just think for us to compete in this league the way that we need to, we're going to have more of that.
Again, that's a longer clip from Coach Paris last night in Carolina Calls, but I think it's important to hear his full thoughts and context on what he's seen out of this team. By the way, it feels very on brand for Lamont Paris to break out some old school George Clinton to this group of guys that were born in the mid 2000s, because I'm sure a lot of them have no clue who George Clinton is or what the song was or anything like that. But he's trying to get the message across of aggressiveness, trying to get the message across of playing hard, playing with effort, and playing physical, because that's what you need to compete in this league. And I thought what we saw at the beginning of the game the other day against Alabama showed some promise. They immediately came out, were pressing hard and being physical, drawing contact, all those kind of things, but it lulled as the game went along. It wasn't consistent for 40 minutes. They could do it coming out of a timeout, but then they kind of went back to being a little bit lax pretty soon after that. And again, Alabama is just a very talented team, top to bottom, starting five, bench, the whole 9 yards. They're just a more talented team than Carolina is. That is not up for debate, but that doesn't mean you can't put in maximum effort and maximum aggressiveness against a team like that. And looking ahead to tomorrow, where again, nobody's picking South Carolina. There's no odds maker out there that's going to tell you that picking South Carolina is a good idea. And everyone's expecting Auburn to come in and run over Carolina and improve to 3-0 in conference play and drop Carolina to 0-3. That being said, and I've said this already, you do get this game at home, which, given what we've seen in conference play so far, home teams are faring very well. And I think that's going to be the case for the majority of the SEC slate this year, just because of how tough it is to go into all these road environments, no matter what team you're taking on. And let's look the other day. Tennessee, the number one team at the time, looked like they didn't know what the game of basketball was, taking on Florida, losing by a ton of points, the worst loss for a number one team in like 30 or 40 years. So you never know what's going to happen. But even if Carolina loses this game, which we don't want to happen, look, from my standpoint of the job that I do here, I want this team to be good. I need this team to be good, because that gives us reason to talk about them. Because here's the thing. If they're going to go 0-18 in conference play by the 7th loss, they're not going to be worth talking about anymore. You're not going to want to listen to us talk about them anymore, because there's nothing there to talk about. So we all want this team to be successful. And even if you don't win tomorrow, there are ways where you can instill some confidence in everybody coming away from it. Not only in the bubble of fans watching the games, but also within your team as well. If you can play with Everett, if you can make Auburn sweat a little bit. And again, even if you don't win the game, if you can go out there and show the 110% we want to see out of this team, then that'll give more optimism going forward. When you're taking on the Vanderbilts, when you're taking on the LSUs, the Missouris, games that, you might have a better chance of winning from a pure talent to talent perspective, you can go out there and show that you are capable of putting your best foot forward against a team like Auburn, then I don't think people are going to want to jump off the ship just yet. Again, a loss sucks, and jumping to 0-3 in conference play is not fun. There's no two ways about that. But if you can give good and maximum effort against Auburn tomorrow, and, if CMB fouls out, with 5-6 minutes to go, but it's from being aggressive and driving to the basket and trying to defend and all these kind of things, I'm okay with that. You obviously don't want to lose your best player, but you get what I'm saying, right? If he goes out there and is doing it through a maximum effort, which again, he seems pretty shell-shocked from the first 2 games of conference play so far. I just want to see that fight. I want to see that spark in this team to show us that they are capable of playing up somewhere close to the level of the competition they're going to see in the SEC. Because again, there are easier teams, but that doesn't mean it's easy by any stretch. Even when you're going to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, both those teams currently top 50 in KenPom as of right now. You've got another game against Mississippi State coming up in a couple weeks that obviously just handled you in their gym a couple weeks or just a couple of days ago. You got to go to Kentucky. Got to take on a very good Georgia team on the road. You're going to go to Florida. You got to welcome in Georgia. You got to welcome in Texas. LSU on the road. Maybe that's a more manageable game. I don't know. But again, what happens tomorrow, I think truly sets the tone for a lot of people on what the rest of this season can and what the rest of this season will be. So even if you don't win, which again, we all want them to, we'd all love that upset. We'd all love to see another reason for people to storm the court and South Carolina have to hand over another 6-figure check to the SEC because you pulled off a huge win against one of the best teams, if not the best team in all of college basketball. But you want something, right? You want something to give you hope, something to give you optimism that, hey, didn't start out great, but we're seeing a little spark of something as you get set to navigate through the middle part of January as conference play continues to roll on. So again, that game tips off tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Pregame coverage starting at 12:30 right here on the game in Columbia and 100.3 the game out in Myrtle Beach. Quickly, I want to hit on this because this story popped yesterday as Terry and I were getting ready to go off there. And by the way, shout out to our guy, Kale, who was in here learning the board from Captain Dave during the halftime show. And he texted this news to Terry. And I was very confused because it was about Carson Beck going into the transfer portal. Carson Beck, of course, the Georgia quarterback for the past couple seasons, who had already declared for the NFL draft. And now he's opting to come back to college football and pursue his options elsewhere, likely the landing spot to be Miami. He has a no contact in terms of the transfer portal, so that usually means he already knows where he's going. And I imagine if he's going to Miami, there's probably a pretty hefty NIL deal that's happening down there as well. His girlfriend, one of the Cavender twins, I don't remember which one he dates, but he dates one of the Cavender twins, and she's of course on the Miami basketball team. So all that kind of adds up and makes sense. And Beck is such an interesting case, right? You may not know this. 2025 will be his 6th season as a college football player. I think a lot of people were unaware of Beck for the couple of years that he sat behind Stetson Bennett. He redshirted in 2020 and played the backup role in those 2 national championship teams in 21 and 22, and finally took over the reins in 2023 and played a really good, really solid season. Of course, Georgia came up short in the SEC championship game that year and prevented them from going to the playoff, even though they're a really good team. But he could have gone and entered the draft at that point in time. And there was a debate about a year ago on his NIL deal and if they could pay him enough to come back. And they ultimately did. Again, he's driving the Lamborghini around Athens. So he got a good NIL deal to come back to college football. But he was thought of as a potential first round top 10 type of pick in what is a weaker quarterback class, but nonetheless was probably going to get an opportunity for somebody given how he had performed in his first year as a starter. Last year's quarterback class was better than this year's is. But going into this year, that was the perception around him. And he played his way right out of that. The interceptions, the overthrows, the bad throws, the lack of clutchness is what really stuck out to me at times. And again, he had that great comeback against Alabama that came up a little bit short. Couldn't materialize anything against Ole Miss. Gunnar Stockton's the one that led the charge in the comeback in the SEC championship game after he got hurt. So he dinged himself in a lot of people's eyes with his play on the field this year. And given the fact that he also had the injury to his elbow that occurred in the SEC championship game, you don't really know what you have in Carson Beck. So I feel like this is an interesting gamble. And again, I'm sure Miami's going to make it worth his while with NIL, but he could potentially hurt himself worse if he comes back for another year and plays worse and to where he's just tumbling down draft boards at that point in time. So it's an interesting risk, right? And skimming through the insiders that I know at Georgia and their reporting of this, Georgia was obviously surprised that he opted to take his name out of the draft because, again, seemed like they were, good with that, and he was on his way to the NFL, and seems like preparations are being made for likely Gunnar Stockton to be the guy coming up next year after a great performance against Texas and a good performance against Texas and a solid performance even in the loss last week against Notre Dame. And when Carson Beck said, "Hey, I'm coming back," it didn't seem like there was a path for him to come back at Georgia. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for both sides. Is Gunnar Stockton truly the right answer? Do they go out and get another portal quarterback? Can Carson Beck go down and be successful in Miami? Likely, where he's going to end up landing with Mario Cristobal now that Cam Ward's moved on to the NFL. I don't know, but it's a very interesting and unique story that, again, usually when guys declare for the draft, especially guys that are projected to go higher, they don't really opt to come back. I can't recall another time that's happened. Maybe you can, but that was some bizarre news nonetheless that popped yesterday afternoon as Terry and I were getting ready to go off the air for the halftime show. Coming up next, our guy, Joe Machika from the Big Spur, will check in. Oh, I know he's excited about what happened last night in South Beach. We'll get his thoughts on that, as well as women's basketball as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head, along with you on your Friday on the Game.
Registering. Call Pro Swing at 803-528-1617. 1075 The Game, broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios.
Take up to $20K off new Silverados.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile. Together, let's drive. Get ready to smile because Herndon Chevrolet, your hometown Chevy dealer, is offering an amazing deal right now. Get up to $20,000 off new Silverados. Yes, you heard that right. Up to $20,000.
What's happening, man?
How much?
We're on this is on live stream today, so just be mindful.
Perfect. 10-4.
Cool. How you feeling?
Good. Big win last night.
No doubt.
So
No doubt.
hopefully, I'll be in Atlanta in 2 weeks, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's a feasible drive.
Yeah, most definitely. I have aunts and uncles that are that have tickets and stuff, or that don't necessarily have, but they put in for the lottery and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So
Cool. All right, we'll talk plenty about it in just a second. Don't worry.
beautiful. Sounds good. And then women's hoops looked good last night, per usual.
Oh yeah.
Dawn took the Irish.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day, and because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/radio right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
What you're talking about. Sponsored by Love Chevrolet.
Now's the time for incredible New Year's savings on the entire lineup of award-winning Chevy vehicles. I-26 at Harvest and LoveChevy.com. Together, let's drive.
I'm with Stephen Samuels of the Samuels Reynolds Law Firm. So, Stephen, how does someone know if you're the right firm to handle their case?
Hey, great question. Each case is unique as the people involved. We're local. You meet with your attorney in person. That way you can tell firsthand if we're a good fit for you. We're a diverse practice. We pack a big punch, and our approach works.
Samuels Reynolds. True injuries, true lawyers. 803-779-4000.
If you've ever been to a Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, you know there's something different about the people who work there. They're the type of people who mail a wallet they found on the street back to the owner, who always share their fries, who say bless you when you sneeze, even if it's like 5 sneezes in a row, who get just as excited when something good happens to you as if it happened to them. You know why? maybe you should just stop by sometime and see for yourself. Palmetto citizens, feel the love. Federally insured by NCUA.
We keep the clutter out of your gutter. Call on the gutter man.
Hi, this is Chastity from the Gutterman. Have the fall leaves clogged your gutters? The pros at the Gutterman can keep the clutter out of your gutter and your downspouts. Look for our guys in the powder blue trucks. Call me at 803-791-7147 or visit us online at thegutterman.com.
Keep the clutter out of your.
Yard attempt. Snap and hold are good. The kick is good!
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on your Friday on the game. That was called last night. Sean McDonough on ESPN as former Gamecock Mitch Jeter nailed the field goal to give Notre Dame the lead 27-24. And then the defense was able to hold on for the last couple plays for Penn State to pick up the victory in the Capital One Orange Bowl and punch their ticket to Atlanta for the national championship. Well, they will await the winner of tonight's matchup between Ohio State and Texas in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic out there in Dallas. And I know one person that was probably more excited than anybody about what happened last night in South Beach. Our guy, Joe Machika from thebigspur.com, hanging out with me as he does each and every Friday. We'll talk about women's basketball in a minute, but Joe, you got to be over the moon today, man.
Yeah, Tyler. It was fun to wake up on Monday morning or on Friday on this Friday morning. Sorry, it feels weird with the playoff
I know
schedule being.
it's still weird, right?
Yeah, with the playoff schedule being on a Thursday, it feels good to wake up on this Friday morning with a victory. But yeah, unbelievable game. You know, Mitch Jeter, who had been bad all year, 50% as a field goal kicker all year for Notre Dame. You know, is able to step up in the clutch. You know. Won that game by the skin of their teeth, if you will, last night. But yeah, just glad to escape that one with a win.
We knew it was going to be like a 4-quarter fight because both these teams are built on running the football and trying to stop the run on the other side. And for the large part of the first half, that's what was happening. And look, Penn State really kind of dominated the first half to get out to the 10-0 lead. And I think, did Riley Leonard get the MVP? I didn't watch the full trophy presentation after the game.
I didn't either.
But you know who should get it? Steve Angeli, because when Riley Leonard goes out in a little 2-minute drill before halftime, it goes into concussion protocol, obviously able to come back into the game. Steve Angeli, the backup quarterback who would have been the starter this year had Riley Leonard not transferred over, leads them down the field and gets an extremely valuable field goal before halftime. And Notre Dame is so good at this. They did this last week against Georgia, did it again last night, taking advantage of having the last possession and then the first possession. They get a field goal before halftime, they get a touchdown right after halftime, and boom, suddenly it's a 10-10 game.
Yeah, Tyler, that's, really on brand for Marcus Freeman and just Notre Dame football in general. Just running the football, right, taking the points when you can get them, setting yourself up for opportunities later in the game. And then there were also points where, Notre Dame punted the ball, and trusted their defense a lot in that second half, which is it's Notre Dame football, right? Like there were situations where if they were playing, say, in Alabama or an Ole Miss or something, or even a South Carolina, you worry where that offense is going to march right back down the field and score. But the way that Notre Dame's defense had been playing up to this point in the year, I think, Marcus was trusting them throughout the game. So, but no, peanut butter and jelly is what they call them in South Bend. Huge drive before the half and, was huge to get points.
Here's Marcus Freeman last night after the win talking about why he thinks this team is national championship caliber.
A special group. You find out a lot about your team at its lowest moments. And this is a group that continue to stay together. They trust each other. They leaned on each other, and they got better. And that's the reality of this team. In those toughest times, that's when you make the major gains. And I'm proud of this group, proud of this place, proud of this university. And let's go celebrate a little bit.
They're efficient in all three phases of the game. They are such an opportunistic defense. I thought last night when they had the 2 interceptions that were overturned by penalties, both those occurring right essentially in the end zone, and Penn State getting 10 points off of those being overturned, I thought that was going to be killer. But at the end of the game, when it came down to it, and I think it was more on Drew Aller making a poor decision in his throw, but they got an interception, set themselves up for field goal, and then Riley Leonard, once again, kind of putting the team on his back, getting grinded out yards to put Mitch Jeter in position to get the game-winning field goal. And then you mentioned, what they were doing to trusting their punter. Some of that punt coverage last night was incredible. I mean, the dude catches the ball, and they're right there. You go back to the kick return touchdown they had to start the second half against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Like, they are so sound in all 3 phases of the game. That is what a national championship caliber team should look like.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. And, if you want to look at it, I mean, Mitch Jeter was raised in the Pete Lembo School of Special Teams at South Carolina. So, Jeter's been great. And then, punt team's been sound and everything like that. But this defense, man, it's going to take them a long ways. Jalen Snead is a South Carolina guy that could have stayed home if he wanted to, but decided to take his talents to Notre Dame and has been great for them. But, Penn State throwing the ball, it reminded me a lot of Dabo throwing the ball in Death Valley, right? Could have ran the ball for a field goal, right, to set you up. But no, instead they want to throw the ball when the game's tight, trust your quarterback. And I didn't fact check this, Tyler, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw somewhere that Penn State didn't complete a pass to a wide receiver all night.
If they did, it wasn't until very late in the game. Because,
Yeah,
Tyler Warren was kind of their go-to guy, has been all season.
Yeah, and Warren was a big threat to that defense, just bigger than everybody else. And you saw what he was able to do, before he kind of got banged up there. But just overall sound defensively. Marcus Freeman's a defensive coach. So at the end of the day, it's his defenses that are going to win games.
I'm glad you brought up Marcus Freeman there because, of course, he was already on the staff as the defensive coordinator when Brian Kelly decided to go to LSU and take that job prior to the 2022 season. What was the thought and perspective of Notre Dame fans when Marcus Freeman took over? Did they think, okay, we had this young coach who would have been 35, 36 at the time that's going to lead this program to great heights for a long time? Or is it like, oh, crap, Brian Kelly's gone. What are we going to do?
It was kind of, a situation where it was like, thank God Brian Kelly's gone. Like it's a fresh start almost, right? Because BK had kind of been giving, the same excuses for losses for his whole tenure. And I don't know, it was a fresh start, right? Freeman just turned 39 today, I believe.
Yep.
38, yeah, so
what a birthday present.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So huge win, on his birthday, I guess. I'm sure the celebration ran into his birthday last night, but yeah, no, it was a breath of fresh air, for the fan base and just for the whole program, really. And he keeps it pretty even keel, right? Pretty real, as far as we know. So, I don't know. And we see what Brian Kelly's doing at LSU, kind of on the hot seat down there. So it definitely a breath of fresh air.
It is kind of funny that, Brian Kelly, and look, there were plenty of Notre Dame teams that won, 11 games, 12 games. Of course, the national championship team that played against Alabama and got beat pretty soundly in the 2012 season. But anytime they got into a big game, a BCS bowl game, New Year's Six game, or a national championship game under Brian Kelly, they got bludgeoned, and it usually wasn't even close. And for Marcus Freeman in 2 weeks or in 1 week to win 2 of those games, I think that vaults him ahead of what Kelly's accomplished in terms of path to getting to a national championship game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's still respect for what Kelly did to the program, right? He elevated it into the 21st, century with all the facilities and the arms race era of college football. He was able to elevate Notre Dame into that, to where Marcus Freeman could step in with facilities and a lot of good players and take them to where they've gone. So, you wonder if that's just a coaching thing and whatnot, but I don't know. Yeah, Freeman certainly doing it. As I mentioned, as we were talking before we went on air, Coach Staley, and I know we'll get to women's basketball, but she picked the Irish, and in part because of Coach Freeman.
Do you have a preference on who they face in the national championship game after the Cotton Bowl tonight?
Preferably not Ohio State.
Not Ohio State.
I think Ohio State, because when you look at what their lone loss on the season, Ryan Day just didn't want to throw to his NFL wide receivers to prove a point. So that's kind of scary. I don't necessarily want to drive to Atlanta and then watch him get boat raced by Ohio State if I do get an opportunity to go to this game.
Yeah, I don't think tonight's game is going to be very competitive. Personally, I think Ohio State's going to win it pretty easily for the most part against Texas. And by the law of averages, last night's game was phenomenal, just on all fronts. Just a fun game to watch, whether you had a rooting interest or not. And I don't think tonight's going to be that same case.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, Tyler. And as much as you want the SEC superiority, to reign, I don't know if Texas can get it done. I mean, who's rooting for anybody in this game, right? Like, it's another situation of where you kind of want both teams to lose.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's no more ties in college football anymore. So somebody does have to win and have to go play for the national championship coming up on January the 20th. We'll dive into women's basketball coming up next. They had a pretty easy win last night themselves over Texas A&M over at Colonial Life Arena. Hit that coming up next. He is Joe Machika from thebigspur.com. Tyler Head along with you on your Friday here in the Extra Point.
Cool. All right.
You gotta have that one. Well, not us. Here at the game. Why? Because we love you more than they do.
I had like 3 different friend groups run into each other at the game last night. Yeah, so I was getting pictures from everybody.
Oh, I bet you were.
Yeah, I was like, I
had FOMO.
Yeah, a little bit. I could have went down, but I mean, women's team had a home game, and I'm like, that's kind of a lot going down in Miami.
Well,
8-hour drive.
Better be ready to shell out a lot of money for the national championship.
Dude, I know. Luckily, so like that's the way that it works. Notre Dame has the ticket allotment, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have season tickets or know like somebody with season tickets, you can put in for national championship tickets. Those you can get at face value for like $400. And so I'm praying to God that one of my aunts or uncles wins the ticket lottery to where I can just pay face value for them and be done. Because I don't know if I can afford to get to Atlanta like myself with buying tickets on the secondary market because it's absurd.
Yeah. Well, for potentially a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and then also if they're playing Ohio State too, it's like I was talking about it with some people while I was watching the game. It's like, all right, if obviously paying secondary market's crazy, and the fact that it is in Atlanta, it's right there.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it's close. So I don't know.
No matter whether it be Ohio State or Texas, both fan bases are going to travel really well.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And I think it was Herb Street that was talking about it. He was like, "This is good for college football. Notre Dame's a big brand. Like for them to be back, it's like."
Yeah, there weren't really many better brand options than what you ended up with in the Final Four.
Yeah.
I'm just glad we got a fun game finally. Well, the Peach Bowl was fun, but there haven't been many other fun ones.
Yeah. Is that one of Connor Shaw's hats?
No, this is from Gold Line Framing.
Oh, hell yeah. It's tough.
Yeah, there's pretty popular around here. I've seen a lot of people with it.
I like it.
I don't know if he has something to do with the branding. I don't think so.
Connor Shaw's brand is Palmetto Hat Company. I forget.
It may be.
Yeah, it might be one of them. Yeah. I know a couple of the kids that do his media.
What you're talking about. Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. Drive into 25 in the Chevy of your dreams. I-26 in Harbison and lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
If you have IRS tax problems, it can seem like a vicious cycle that never ends, year after year. Just getting the mail can be stressful and overwhelming. Don't let it ruin your life. There is a solution. Since 2008, the attorneys at Eckton Law Firm have devoted their practice to the resolution of tax problems for individuals and businesses across the Carolinas. We have the knowledge and experience and are dedicated to the success of each client. We are local attorneys with local solutions. At the free
are you a coffee guy?
I am.
Listen to your concerns.
How do you like it?
I like a little creamer in it. I like just enough to turn the coffee a lighter color.
Yeah, same. I've been slowly getting down to darker coffee, and I'm enjoying it.
Well, I like to drink coffee that has. I like to drink things with flavor. Personally,
Yeah.
I get it. Coffee wakes you up, but I don't know. I like
just enough creamer to get the flavor, like both. You need the best of both worlds. Get your creamer and then the coffee. Yeah, it's perfect.
Right.
Also saying the record's going to go down. I'm saying the record.
My whole family back home just drinks it just black. My grandfather always drank it black. My mom drank it black.
Old school.
Hair of the dog.
That's right.
Overreact with us. Overreaction month.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you on your Friday, hanging out with our guy Joe Machika from thebigspur.com. We've let him get his Notre Dame excitement out of the way, but he did have a job yesterday over at Colonial Life Arena with women's basketball taking on Texas A&M. How convenient that game was at 5 o'clock. What time did you actually get out of there and get home to watch the Orange Bowl?
7:30. I mean, Dawn started her presser around. It was like 7:20-ish, 7:30. So it wasn't too bad. Game started around 7:45. So Dawn was pretty easy on us, and took it light on us and everything. We got out of there pretty early to watch the game. It was great.
Well, there wasn't a whole lot to be said about this game because in true South Carolina fashion, they went out there and just dominated from the jump, picking up the 90-49 win against the Aggies, who came in as a little bit over a 500 team. So nobody really expected them to come in and push South Carolina too much. But as we've talked about through these past couple weeks, this is a Carolina team that really struggles early on in games to get off to good starts. They find themselves down by 10, 12 points, and usually they'll make a run before halftime and then turn it on in the third quarter. This, at least in conference play, was the first time we saw a true four-quarter dominant performance from Don Staley's crew.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler, and plenty of excitement too. I mean, fans were kind of looking to see what this team would look like without Ashlyn Watkins coming off the bench and providing a big defensive effort and offensive effort on the glass too. So this team controlled early from the jump. Looked great as they have. I mean, they've been shooting 50%. It feels like since this UCLA loss, they've been taking a lot of really good shots recently. And it's been good to see. Joyce Edwards elevated her game a lot last night, 19 points, almost hit a career high. So it was a big night for Joyce, and Dawn kind of talked about it in her post game about how even with Ashlyn out, Joyce kind of elevated her game without her asking her to, and so it's big out of the freshmen. You love to see it. Chloe Kitts played well, and then you also had the rotation of Miriam Dowda. And Sanaya Fagan also showed some good things off the end of the bench there in the rotation for the forward. So
I loved how crazy everybody went when Fagan hit the 3-pointer. Like, oh, she can do that too.
Yeah. Dowda is kind of the shooting big, or has been talked about as the big that can shoot going into this year. And then Fagan just drains that one towards the end of the game. So plenty of excitement regarding on filling in that Ashton Watkins role. But also Dawn talked about it too. It's like she isn't asking them to fill the role that Ashton Watkins is filling. She wants them to play their game and play their basketball because that's where they're most comfortable at, and certainly comfortable against the Aggies last night.
And I think that speaks to the depth and talent that this team has, where a lot of teams around the country, when you lose what is debatably your best player on the team, there's a sense of panic, right? And a sense of urgency to try and figure out a plan B to make up for it. And it doesn't really seem like that. And hearing from Dawn and hearing from the girls on the team, they understand their assignment. They know they're down a really good player, but they have the depth and the talent on this roster to not have one person, like you said, replace what Watkins did, because she's a very, very special talent, but everybody else picking up a little part of it and playing their own role to where, again, if you hadn't watched South Carolina basketball all season and didn't know Ashlyn Watkins wasn't out there, you'd say, yeah, a 90-45 win against A&M looks about what I expect South Carolina to do.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. Absolutely. And the backside of this forward lineup developing at this point in the year is awesome for this team, right? I think the fans should be very excited about that, because come March, when Miriam Dowda is playing key roles, or Fagan is playing key roles and key minutes in these pivotal games, it's going to pay off, right? And it was kind of cool to see Joyce Edwards and Miriam Dowda in the post game. It was like yin and yang. Joyce Edwards very on top of things, and then Miriam Dowda very, very chill. So the vibe for this team is in a good spot, and they're coming up on some of the toughest tests yet. So it's good to see that they're rolling.
Yeah, no kid. No kidding about that. They got Texas coming up on Sunday, 1 o'clock tip, 12:30 pregame here on 107.5. The game that starts a stretch of 5 consecutive ranked teams over the course of the next couple weeks. Dawn Staley last night talked about her assessment of where this team's at as they get set to head into their toughest slate of the entire season.
I like where we are. I do. I mean, probably Ashland's injury freed us up a little bit. I think we could play a little more loose. And I mean, I like it. I'm not fretting the 5 games in 16 days at all. Like, our team is prepared to play. Win, lose, or draw, we're gonna play. We're gonna play hard. We're gonna give our best effort. That doesn't mean that we're gonna play perfectly, but we're gonna muck it up to where other teams can't play perfectly either. It's gonna be a battle, and we look forward to the battle.
And again, as we've talked about, the slow starts are what really concerned me about the South Carolina team, where you're going to face number 5 Texas, number 18 Alabama, number 10 Oklahoma, number 6 LSU, and then number 16 Tennessee at the end of all that coming up at the end of the month, where against all those teams, if you don't come out of the gate hot enough, you could find yourself in a hole that's going to be a little bit hard to dig out of. But again, what we saw last night really kind of checked that box for a lot of people. Like, okay, that's what we've been waiting to see in conference play, and for a lot of the games this season against a quality opponent in A&M.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. And you look at, I mean, even when they do start slow, this team has the ability to, rebound back if they're able to start well in the second half. If you look at what they did against Mississippi State, even losing Ashland Watkins early in the second quarter, the team was shooting like 30-something% going into or just before the Watkins injury. And then they went on like a 20-13, 27 run, early on in that second half, to swing the tide back. And again, I mentioned their shooting numbers. They had the ability on the road in Starkville to be able to, swing the tide back and take better shots to get their shooting percentage back around 50%. And Tyler, when they're shooting 50%, they're winning games. I don't know a lot of teams that are shooting 50% and losing. So it's one of those things that it shows how good this team really can be. To just, flip the switch, take better shots, and really just play their own game and win games out the stretch.
Of course, Texas coming up next. You're going to have to account for one of the best players in all of women's basketball, in Madison Booker, who, by the way, had 21 points last night in their 84-40 beatdown of a ranked Alabama team, one that South Carolina is going to be facing coming up here in a couple weeks. She got off to kind of a slow start in conference play, 8 points against Oklahoma and 3 points against Arkansas, but kind of got back on the horse last night and looked in true form what she's going to be. And again, you're going to have to try and find a way to slow her down if you want to beat this Texas team on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. This Texas team is really, really, really good. It's going to be a battle for sure at CLA at 1 o'clock. The game 2 of the Texas two-step. Shout out, hat tip to Brad Muller for the verbiage on that. I wore my boots last night, and I will be wearing my boots Sunday
Nice.
for this game against Texas. Yeah. So it should be a great game, and this team has to play disciplined. I think there's, again, plenty of talent, and you have guards galore to score for you. You just got to do the little things right, and I think they should be able to. Again, should be a little bit tighter, but Dawn, she mentioned it too, and on her radio show. The only, if you don't see her getting worried when teams go up on them, and nobody should be getting worried. So I don't think it should be cause of concern if Texas goes on a little run in that first half.
It's a Texas team that's very deep, like South Carolina. They got a freshman in Jordan Lee that scored 17 points in their win against number 9 Oklahoma a couple weeks ago. So very talented on all fronts for this team. Last one here before we let you go is you look at this stretch of teams. We'll break these games down individually as they come and go. Is it Texas? Is it LSU? Which team concerns you the most in their ability to match up with what Carolina has?
Yeah, LSU. I think Flage is a big one. And just everything that Kim Mulkey brings with her experience and knowing just the inner workings of the game. I think there's obviously more hype around South Carolina and LSU. This Texas game, I haven't seen as much hype going into it. Certainly, a top 5 matchup is always going to draw eyeballs. But anytime Kim Mulkey and Dawn Staley have to go at it, and Flage Johnson and all this superstar power that LSU and South Carolina brings, I think there's more eyeballs, more pressure on that one. So more concerned about LSU, but we'll see. Texas is no pushover either.
Well, we'll see what this team is this time next week when we check in with you. Once again, we'll be able to talk about previewing the national championship coming up on January the 20th as well.
Yeah, crazy to think that we're there, Tyler. And then everybody drive safe with the snow.
Yes.
Just
I was gonna say,
drive
you,
slow.
you spend all that time in South Bend where it just dumps snow on you. You come back
Yes.
home and then it snows.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable. I thought I left a bunch of stuff back in Indiana, just me being forgetful. I thought I left the snow back with me too, but everybody drives safe, just drive slow. It's you don't know where anybody's going to slip and slide. One of the first days I was driving back in Indiana was on, 3-4 inches of snow. So just drive safe, drive slow, and everyone take care of yourselves. This weather's not something y'all are used to down here.
Yeah, absolutely. Fortunately to be out of here. Hopefully by early tomorrow we don't have to worry about it anymore. Appreciate it as always, Joe, and we'll check in with you next week.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. Appreciate you having me as always. And yeah, can't wait to see you next week. Appreciate it. Thank you.
He is Joe Machika from BigSpur.com. I'll come back and wrap up hour number 2 of the X Point, preview a little bit of what's happening with the NFL playoffs coming up this weekend here on The Game. Well, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you on your Friday here on The Game. Appreciate everybody checking us out on The Game TV, sponsored by our friends at Shepherd's Glass and powered by Integrated Media. Remember, you can also take us with you wherever you go on the 107.5 The Game app. Just go to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store and download us and listen to us anywhere you are. What a fun weekend of football this is. Of course, got things kicked off last night with the Orange Bowl semifinal game, got the Cotton Bowl semifinal game tonight, which we'll get into a little bit more in the 11 o'clock hour. And you also have wild card weekend of the NFL playoffs that they're not calling super wild card weekend anymore. For some reason, they've dropped the super moniker from it, though you do have games running from mid-Saturday afternoon all the way into Monday night. But regardless, just kind of wall-to-wall football this weekend, which I think we're all certainly excited about to see who advances to the divisional round and gets one step closer to playing in the Super Bowl coming up in New Orleans here in right about a month's time. Things have kicked off. Chargers in Houston tomorrow. Chargers going to have to hold off that great pass rush that Houston has with Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. You look at the coaching matchup in this game, you obviously give the advantage to Jim Harbaugh, but DeMeco Ryans done a phenomenal job in just 2 seasons with Houston so far. And again, they won a pretty hapless division down there in the AFC South. Also going to be without Tank Dell, of course, had the injury on Christmas Day against Kansas City. So I kind of lean a little more towards the Chargers on that one. Tomorrow night on Amazon Prime, you get a AFC North matchup for the 3rd time this year. Baltimore taking on Pittsburgh. A lot of familiarity, obviously, which, can give give Pittsburgh the opportunity to make this game interesting. But I think, especially at home, Baltimore is just too good, too talented. They are going to be without Zay Flowers, 1,000-yard receiver, getting good chemistry with Lamar Jackson. And Pittsburgh does play really good defense, but that offense is so clunky. I know they put together a small comeback against Cincinnati this past weekend to close out the regular season, but just things are not clicking. George Pickens can't catch a ball to save his life, it seems like. Russell Wilson is not the same Russell Wilson from a couple years ago, putting so much air into the ball that's allowing passes to be defended or DBs to get underneath the ball. And I just don't buy Pittsburgh as a viable threat to advance out of the first round, especially going up against team in Baltimore that beat them pretty soundly last time these two teams played a couple weeks ago. I believe it was 34 to 17. Sunday, Denver and Buffalo squaring off as, of course, the Broncos got themselves into the playoffs by virtue of winning there in the last game of the regular season against basically Kansas City's backups. This seems like the best Buffalo team that they've had in this Josh Allen era. And I know we've probably said that many times before. And look, they beat Kansas City in the regular season. It's all about, can you do it in January? And they're going to have to earn the right to play against them. But this team seems really, really good, especially offensively. Defense gives you some pause. They had those couple weeks where they're giving up about 40 points, but they seem to have worked things back a little bit better these past couple weeks. And I think they shouldn't have a problem with Denver, especially considering the fact that Bo Nix will be making his first career playoff start and on the road in Buffalo. Again, Denver's not against frigid conditions because it gets cold out there in Colorado, but I just can't think, even with Sean Payton, as good of a coach as he is, I don't think he can take the Broncos into the madness of Bills Mafia and pick up this win, especially if Josh Allen continues to play at the clip that he's been playing at the MVP level he's been playing out this year. Denver does have a good pass rush, but Josh Allen is elusive, and we've seen him get out of a lot of stuff and make plays with his feet, which I think will be the biggest difference coming up tomorrow. Later on Sunday, get Green Bay and Philadelphia. Philly won this game at the beginning of the year. Remember, they played that game. It was the second game of the NFL season in Brazil that Philadelphia won. Both quarterbacks come in banged up. Jordan Love had the, I believe, elbow injury in their last game of the regular season against the Bears. And then Jalen Hurts sat out the last game because he got the concussion the week before. Both quarterbacks seem okay. Saquon Barkley obviously having a phenomenal year. He may carry the load once again for this, Philadelphia offense coming up tomorrow. And Green Bay, a very good run defense. They have they're allowing less than 100 rush yards per game. So it's going to be interesting to see how Saquon Barkley matches up with that team once again. But again, Philadelphia was able to get that win earlier on in the season. Nightcap on Sunday, Washington going on the road to take on Tampa Bay down there in Florida. The Bucs actually won this game in the regular season 37-20. And much like I talked about with Bo Nix going on the road to Philadelphia to Buffalo for his first career playoff game. How does Jaden Daniels, as great as he's played this year, how does he fare in a playoff environment, a win or go home type of situation on the road against a team that he's already lost to earlier on this year? I think they're capable. I think Jalen Daniels is deserving of Rookie of the Year with how well he's played, but going down to Tampa Bay is going to be tough, no question about that. Then finally on Monday, this game actually got moved to Glendale to play in State Farm Stadium where the Cardinals play because of the wildfires going on out there in Los Angeles. You got Minnesota, who would have gotten the number 1 seed if they beaten the Lions, dropped to the 5 seed by virtue of losing that and have to go on the road, take on the Rams again in Arizona to try and advance through to the next round. My question is, can Sam Darnold bounce back? We saw him look the worst he has the entire season against that Lions defense. The Lions defense that for most of the season has not been great. Is he going to bounce back, or is he going to revert back to being Sam Darnold that I think a lot of us have kind of been waiting for this season? We'll have to see. But fun weekend of football nonetheless on the college and professional front, and we'll break it down all on Monday as well. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Check in with Chris Wellbaum of Gamecock Central on women's basketball after that win against A&M last night. It's the Extra Point here on the game.